in the way we achieve these goals of sustainable development around the globe.
Join us
As we
lift the lives of many,
improving human health and restoring the environment,
empowering women,
and protecting children whilst creating a
sustainable nation for.
Together, let's action to impact.
This is a very important story. The important story. In the midst of COVID-19, it's an historic opportunity to look at the facts of the world as it is, and then to focus on the solutions to some of our greatest problems. In the 75 years since the United Nations was founded, the human race has never had to face a set of challenges like we do right now. But together, we can overcome them. On the 25th of September 2015, all United Nations member states signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals, a set of solutions for the biggest problems the world faces.
So this is a moment to recognize that the way we have been moving leads nowhere and that we need to change course.
A very good evening, morning, or whatever time is applicable wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my privilege and honor to be with all of you today and to share a topic that I'm passionate about. And I have an amazing panel which is truly global in its reach to help achieve this objective. And my job first is to introduce the topic that we have. Our topic is quite straightforward. Why should business basically impact the climate emergency? I mean, should business impact the climate emergency at all, or should we leave it to governments to sort this out? So that is the topic. And in terms of the topic, some of the key thoughts I want to first share with all of you before we go into the panel discussion is the climate emergency didn't sneak in on us last week. And it's not as if every one of us suddenly turned our television sets on and heard that California was on fire, that Australia was on fire, and India was underwater, and Japan is underwater. I can tell you, we've known the facts for the last 34 years. And one thing that really shocks me is how did we wait for 34 years without taking the kind of actions that we should have taken 34 years back? I go back in time to 1987 when the first Brundtland report was presented to the United Nations. And in it, if you read that report, which is titled Our Common Future, it is very clearly laid out that the planet and the climate is changing dramatically, and it's changing because of fossil fuels. And this was in 1987, 34 years back. Exactly a year after that, we had a presentation to the US Congress made by an excellent professor working with NASA, and he basically confirmed the challenges that we were faced with to the entire Congress. Between 1988 and 2021, we've had landmark meetings. We've had the Earth Summit in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which is now the hotspot for the destruction of the Amazon. We then went into a series of meetings between 1992 and 2015, which were known as COP1 to 26, coming up in Glasgow this November. And I can tell you, meeting after meeting, seminar after seminar, report after report, the simple facts have always been very straightforward. If you keep burning fossil fuels, the planet will warm. And if the planet warms, we are going to end up with three kinds of extreme weather incidents, which are droughts, extreme high temperatures, and unbelievable rainfall and flooding. And because the planet's polar caps are beginning to melt. However, after 34 years of what I would term not enough urgency for the climate emergency, we now are at a burning point where we have now come to a point where we are facing unprecedented extreme weather incidents, which are absolutely destroying global GDP even in front of our very eyes. And the real question is, what have we done the past 34 years? What has business done and what have nations done? What have leaders done? So there was a bit of euphoria in 2015 in December when everyone met in Paris and everyone signed up to the Paris Climate Agreement. And for the first time, it looked like everyone had come to a place of understanding that we needed to act with urgency for the climate emergency and start moving out of fossil fuels. And some very bold commitments were made, like 80% of our energy is going to be now coming from renewable energy by 2030. And then we looked at everything with hope. And then we looked at 2020 and we had a review of where every country was in terms of the commitments they made in terms of their nationally determined commitments to impact the global UN SDGs and the commitments they made. And here's the sad fact, ladies and gentlemen. As we look at the review as at December 2020, when you look at the 196 countries which made very aggressive commitments, the reality is we are 60 to 70% off the target that we should have achieved in December 2020, which means we have to first catch up on the gap of 70% between 2015 and 2020, and then achieve 100% of what we said we would achieve between now and 2030. But what I am seeing now is once again an attempt at COP26 to once again move the goalpost from 2030 to 2050. And suddenly everyone is once again coming to a place of not taking the climate emergency as seriously as we know. And The IPPC report that was just presented the other day, 2 days ago to be exact, confirmed to us that the time we have left before we cross the 1.5 degree centigrade milestone from a base year of 1880 is going to be, according to the IPCC report, happening in the next 10 to 20 years. But I want to refer to the World Meteorological Organization's report, which they presented in May this year, where they categorically said we will cross the plus 1.5 degree barrier in 2025. So we have a catastrophic outlook because all the fantastic gains, national GDP growths and business profitability and brilliant quarterly results are going to get wiped away when these extreme weather incidents keep pummeling the planet. So in the light of that, then the real question is, who needs to act with urgency to impact the climate emergency? Do we leave it to governments, or does business have a role to play in all of this? And today's topic is about business response to the climate emergency. And I must state a fact with every one of you. If you take the 100 most powerful economic entities on the planet today, the top 100, 80 of those spots are today held by businesses and only 20 by countries. So if business doesn't get into the act, I can tell you we are basically doomed. And because business today has a much bigger impact on the climate and the weather and the climate emergency than every nation can imagine. So with those few words of introduction, I'm extremely honored today to have a very, very global and international panel. And I'm told there's a video clip to introduce every one of them. So let me first let the video clip do its job, and then we'll go into picking the hearts, brains, and minds of every one of these panelists as to why should business respond to the climate emergency. And the emergency, word emergency, I hope, is a key word we all understand. It is almost as if we are treating the emergency like just another day at the office, because it doesn't look like we are moving the patients into the the emergency units and the intensive care units. We are sort of keeping the patient pretty much in the waiting room and saying, let's wait till the doctor comes. And the patients are now, the patients are the planet and businesses and nations. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the video clip introducing our panelists, and then we will get to an extremely exciting discussion, picking the minds, and I use the word hearts too, because if we don't have passion to sort this one out, I can tell you we will end up with another report, just like the reports we've seen the last 34 years, which finally doesn't mean much if we don't act on it. Okay, so back to the team for the video clip on our panelists. Thank you. Thank you, the team. And let me start by first saying a few words of all our panelists. I think all of you have seen their key bio information. But just before that, these call action to impact and action, not action to tick in the box. So let's work on action to impact, because lots of companies and countries are yet treating the climate emergency as a big tick in the box exercise. And that's why 34 years after, we are facing an unprecedented climate emergency. So we have a very powerful gender unbalanced team with two very powerful ladies, actually three, and one gentleman who's going to keep the gender balance in place. So let me start by introducing Trinity Lloyd, who is with Google. Google is one of the great companies of the world, and I don't think anyone needs too much of an introduction when we talk about Google, also known as Alphabet. Today is clearly among the top 3 companies of the world. And Google is a case I teach in my courses, because I always am inspired by the leadership Google gives by already moving to almost 100% renewable energy for lots of its electricity needs, and has also invested some significant amounts of money in terms of almost creating a division for renewable energy within their organization. And their ability to master algorithms with AI has also impressed me very much. And look, we have the person who actually is driving all of this at Google, none other than Trinity Lloyd, who is their sustainability head, plus the one who is managing energy transition. In fact, I think every country and every business should have an energy transition and sustainability manager, because if we sort that one out, we are pretty much in business. If we don't sort that one out and do all the other 16 things we have to do, I can tell you our house will remain on fire, and then we will be looking for another house. I know a few people will get into a Virgin Galactic and blue whatever and escape the planet, but the 7.9 billion of us are going to be pretty much roasting in a planet otherwise. Okay, so great to have you on board, Trinity. We also have Leonie Vaas from Haley's Fabric. Haley's is one of Sri Lanka's most admired companies and has been a champion of international business. Today is, I think, one of the top 3 companies in glove manufacturer to the world, including 3M, and is in value-added rubber products, and also is in fabrics. And Little Sri Lanka earned a name as one of the top 5 to 10 intimate wear suppliers, and Haley's Fabrics have played a key role in creating those fabrics. And Leonie heads their sustainability side. Anne, very welcome to you, and lovely to have you on board. Just, I want to quickly introduce Anne Rosenberg, and thanks, Anne. I think you've already done a session for us. And welcome to our panel discussion on the business and impacting the climate emergency. So let me take a moment to introduce Anne here. So Anne has many hats from what I see. I mean, she is the sustainability champion for Wood PLC, if I remember right, has also played a role in the World Economic Forum in terms of climate justice. And talking about the World Economic Forum, if you look at the World Economic Forum's report in 2020 and 2021, guess what was the first biggest risk the planet and the world is faced with? Extreme weather incidents. Now, if we had taken that seriously and acted on it, probably we won't be in the kind of mess that the world is in right now. So World Economic Forum sets a very important role for us. And in addition to that, has also played a role in the UN Global Compact, which I have been involved in for the last, I think, 10 years, and played a role in driving the SDG agenda. So welcome on board, Anne. And last but not least, we have, you can see this extremely gender balanced panel of 3 ladies and 1 gentleman. And the one gentleman who's on our panel is Jehan Peripanagam, and he's from John Keel's Holdings. Again, a leading company among the top 3 or 5 companies of Sri Lanka. It's been a very important conglomerate in the country and has been driving the subject of sustainability quite aggressively in their own way. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's our panel. And to kick things off, I want to start today with a simple question to our panelists. And the simple question is, why should business impact the climate emergency? I mean, it sounds almost ridiculous for me to ask this question, but when I look at the facts, and lots of my research actually has been focused at Cambridge University in understanding the facts in terms of the response of companies to the climate emergency. And I found in a cohort of 234 companies that I researched about 4 years ago, that something like 3% of companies were serious about it, 7% of companies were happy to comply and do the reporting stuff, and 90% thought, what's this about climate emergency? And I think that is the reality we are faced with. And today, I want to pose that question to every single one of our panelists to get their views on. So why should business in 2021 August respond to the climate emergency? And I also want to ask a second question, and I want to ask both these questions from each one of you. Why hasn't it happened so far? So let me open the field, as it were, the batting, as we call it, in Sri Lankan parlance. And I'm sure baseball has a batter too. So let's start with Anne Rosenberg. Anne, why should business respond to the climate emergency, which is now appearing on our television sets every day, 24/7, depending on whatever channel you watch? You're getting a whole lesson on the climate emergency. So why should business impact this? Over to you, Anne.
Thank you so much. You're totally right. The climate crisis and the whole situation about climate is not something that is new to anybody. It has been discussed for many years. And the question is, why is it now that we actually see a strong public-private partnership where the private sector really are getting into the cooperation? So first of all, that was one of the reasons why I created the SDG ambition that came out for actually 2 years ago now, 1.5, 2 years ago. I launched it together with the Secretary General at Davos just before COVID closed down the world. And that is a framework that is going in to help the private sector really to work with the 17 global goals via 10 business ambitions. One of the ambitions, which was the first one that came out, is around climate. And that, of course, has to do with when you look at how the private sector, when you produce product, if we talk about the whole energy sector, the way you produce energy resources, really impact the way we work as human beings, as government beings, as we all are working together. So the private sector play a key role in sustainability. Whatever we talk about climate, we talk about circular economy, or we speak about gender equality, or whatever we speak about. There's one thing that I just want to address, two things I want to address here that is happening right now, is that we are going from the industrial revolution into the behavioral revolution. And the behavioral revolution is really around how we talk about being a consumer in this world where we're going to live a more sustainable world, a more sustainable life. And what we begin to see is that the behavioral revolution, the way we behave, have an impact on how the private sector, of course, are supporting us as human beings. And of course, in the end, it has an impact on the resources and how resources are being, the consumption of resources, in this case, energy resources. But it can also be water, it can be all different kind of things. So it's great to see how the private sector now are stepping up. I also think that another interesting thing that's happening right now, because this is not a new thing, is that I think COVID have shown what it means when people come together, when something really becomes life-threatened. And the climate crisis is life-threatened. We are seeing it with the differences of weather conditions all over the world. Every day in the news, we hear about new extreme weather conditions. And I think the private sector has realized that the only way you can go in and find solutions is to really come together. And this is why I'm super excited about that UN recently have come out with a new identity, a new department in UN, which is called the Energy Compact, the UN Energy Compact. And the UN Energy Compact is actually, normally you have UN, which is for the member states, and then you have UN Global Compact, which is for the private sector. But the UN Energy Compact it goes across, and it has recently been established by the Secretary General, and at the big General Assembly that is coming up now here in 1 month, there will be a number of champions that will be announced. And the focus on this, I'm super excited about this, is that it's all about goal number 7, clean energy. And there's a focus on the themes of the initiative are energy access, energy transition, enabling SDGs through inclusive, just energy transition, innovation, technology and data, and finance and investment. And really? And for me, that is exciting because it's a compact across everything, the private sector, the government, the NGOs, the academia, and so on and so forth. And so that so you also look that up. People, you can become member of it, of course, and then you already see countries are backing up around it, companies are backing up around it. Actually, Google is one of the companies, so I just wanted to say we are in a very specific moment in time now where you see a huge uptake from the private sector to go in and work in a very strong public-private partnership, and that you will also see when we are leading up to COP. That no company will go alone to COP. You go in and you don't just pledge a COP, you pledge before COP, you go in together with other companies and you bring in solutions. So it's very exciting, but we are definitely also in a very, you can say, time right now. We need to take this super seriously and really begin to solve the big issues. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent, Anne. Thank you very much. This is music to my ears because from the day I started doing this subject, I think about 10, 15 years ago, I said, why don't we focus on the energy goal number 7? Because if we fix that, everything else is going to be sorted out. And then I found that people were distracted by 16 other things that they were trying to do. And corporates being corporates, tried to, do the right thing and be politically right and started doing 17 things as opposed to doing the one thing that I thought they should be doing. And even though it's almost 34 years since the Brundtland report, I'm glad that finally there is focus, because actually it's 34 years late, because actually we should have done this probably goal 7 focus probably 34 years ago when they said burning fossil fuels is the problem, right? So I'm really happy to hear this, Anne. And just one other question before I get to Trinity. Why do you think, and this is just a very open question, why do you think that though we've had all the science that we can possibly dream of confirming the climate emergency in the last 34 years, what has held back world leaders and business leaders from acting with urgency on this? Well, why do you think that has happened? And why do you think? I mean, I have my own spin on this, which I will share at some point. But I just, through the research I've done, but I just want to hear your thoughts, because I mean, as somebody who's been on this case for some years, sometimes I get quite paranoid when, what I consider to be a big distraction from our real focus, when I hear of all the other things we are doing. I mean, this young lady from Sweden, Greta Thunberg, I think said it beautifully and said, at 17, she saw the brilliance and she said, our house is on fire, now put out the fire, guys. And the only way we are going to put out the fire is if we seriously talk of energy. But what has held back in your opinion, and this is a question I'm going to ask every single one of our panelists. What has delayed this urgency for the climate emergency in the last 34 years?
So you just nailed the question totally, because this week I think a lot of people, there's been like, so when the IPPC report came out, it was like one portion of, and the interesting thing is that the IPPC report has not just been written by the people who care about energy and climate crisis. Everybody's involved in this conversation, right? Everybody's involved, and it's been the prime thing on TV for everybody to see and watch and have conversation about. And it was interesting, Greta Thunberg actually came out in front, so I'm Danish, I do live in US, but in Denmark, in the Nordic, there was Woke magazine came out the first time in Nordic, where Greta Thunberg was on the front of the cover. Wow. And there was some really key statement from her this week, exactly at the week that the IPCC report came out. And what I'm trying to say about this, because I have three input on what I have seen this week here, because I think this week the whole world have waked up to something that they should be woken up to for a long time ago, right? But now the whole world kind of get it, right? So you can say, if you ask a young person about, were you surprised to see that it is because of human behavior? Human behavior is one of the big reasons why we are in the situation we are in today. And are you surprised that we are not able to reach what we were trying to reach, right? And they say, no, we are not surprised. This is what we have been saying the whole time, right? Okay, so the young generation led by Greta Thunberg totally understand that no surprise there, right? We need to remember this is the generations that is going to, the next generation. Then secondly, there has been a lot of conversations around that normally, you say, okay, let us solve the crisis. Let us solve the crisis. This has been kind of what we're saying the whole time. But the thing is that you cannot solve it. You need kind of to understand that it is what it is. You can't go back. So what does that mean when you can't go back and make it what it was before? And people have the same conversation about COVID. We want to go back as it was before, but we also are realizing as we're going through, the COVID, and we are getting, things are becoming better and better and better, but we are now like the second year into the COVID, world, right? And things are getting better, but people, I believe, can see that we are not going to go back as it was before, right? It's going to change the way we work. It's going to change so many things. The same thing is with climate. We are not able to go back and have it as it was before. So what does that mean? It means that when we are right here, right now, we understand, the people who did the report, the data is telling us the story, they're telling us the truth. So now we need to take this, and now we need to work from now and make things better going forward, right? And that we need to do really fast and put all our resources into. And then the third thing, and this is what I am so excited around with UN, because you can say, when you ask me who do you work for, I work for UN. What does that mean? I don't work for UN, I work for Wood PLC. But the thing, and before that I worked for SAP, but I see those companies like any other company working for something that is bigger than themselves. And that is what I believe companies understand now, is like wherever you work, you have something in your backpack that you're contributing to a bigger problem. And this is where I see right now that wood is becoming, has always been, but now the private sector finally understand it. The world finally understand it, that it is an orchestrator to solve the big issues of the world for the human being. So when we go to COP, and we can also see through the COP agenda, we are not just coming up with solutions that is going to help part of the world. We are going to come up with solutions that is helping every single person in the world. So I was in a panel yesterday, and one of the questions from one in the audience was that, how do you make sure you build a world where products and the way you live, the way you consume, the way we act in the world is not just built for the people who can affordable to be sustainable? And that's back to the behavior revolution. How do you build a world where any single person is supported and can live in a world that is for everybody? And that's the third thing. And I think this week, that for me has been what I picked up in the conversations, right? So I think the world For me, the world had a reset this week. It was like when the vaccine came out. The vaccine came out, and to COVID. Now we are resetting, and now we go forward and we work on solutions. Right? The same thing this week was reset, and now we work on solutions. Yeah.
I sincerely hope and pray that there's the reset that I've been waiting the last 15 years to happen. So we thank you very much, Anne, for those kind words, and we'll come back to you because we've got 2 more panel sessions. I'm going to head of Google in terms of sustainability and energy transition, and Trinity, I think the same question to you. Why should business respond to the climate emergency, and why hasn't business done so in the past? Because Google is the exception to the rule and not the rule. I can assure you that. Okay, over to you, Trinity.
Yes, thank you so much. You're right. I think a big part of it is that we have thought of it as a climate emergency, and really it is a human emergency. It is a human imperative, and that also makes it a business imperative. But what can I say? We've been a little slow to catch on a global scale to that point. It's always been about something that's going on out there, not something that's going on inside our businesses. But I think the good news is that the youth has really created a catalyst. It's brought a bunch of components together, a bunch of drivers together, and we are in a point now where the rest of the world is waking up. They're waking up to recognize that this isn't something that's going on out there. This is something that's happening to me. It's happening to my family. It's happening to the potential for my business. It's happening to the profitability of my business, so that everything has to be aligned and is becoming aligned in this direction. So, you know, a brand and its differentiation is now completely wrapped up in climate and what's doing right and what's doing good, versus, you know, it just being kind of a nice to have or something that would be a good marketing play. It's completely aligned. So you can't really be profitable. You can't have long-term viability anymore if you aren't responding, if you aren't acting in your personal life, in your business, and in your direction forward. Both have to be aligned in that way. And so I think what we're starting to really see and recognize, and I particularly think in the last maybe 12 or 18 months, maybe even 6 months, it's just going so much faster, and it's really exciting. It's exciting because you can see that people are opening up. They are beginning to recognize that the way that they have gone about business, the way that they have operated with their suppliers, their customers, how they have thought about even sustainability and energy. It's not really a bottom line cost anymore. It is a top line opportunity. It's a top line imperative. And also the good news is that means if we actually act together in global unity, in business unity, in public unity, in private unity, then not only are we all making an inclusive an accessible opportunity for the world, but we're also creating a pathway for our grandchildren, our great grandchildren to also have those same opportunities. And we're recognizing that there really is no alternative. And it's exciting to be part of a global unification. It's a total bummer that it's a global unification that comes out of a complete crisis, yeah. But it's good to see that we're actually starting to get it. And I thank the youth for screaming until we wake up. I appreciate it every day. I encourage them to keep, fighting and standing up to big giants, even when they're 7, 8, 12, 14, 17 years old. But I think it's been part of what's made, my generation and other generations start to go, wait, what are you so mad about? What do I need to be focusing on? And so I applaud them. I have all the gratitude in the world for them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we've got 2 excellent perspectives. One from Anne, which is full of hope with the new energy compact that is going to be set up. And I have always believed that is the one to focus on. and I'm glad that it's finally happening. And I think, Trinity, your key point was we don't have an alternative. And I think that's a key message that business should take from these two messages. One is impact energy solutions. The other one is we don't have an alternative. I mean, all the business results that we show, and by the way, Google, congratulations, perfect results end of Q2. I think shot about 30-40% above the set targets, right? So brilliant. But the bottom line is all those results that companies produce and all the GDP growth that nations produce will just get washed away or get completely burnt away if we don't sort this one out. Yeah. Okay.
There's no long term. That's right.
Absolutely. So I'm going to now go into Leonie Vaz. And the first round, I'm going to follow protocol and make sure all our ladies get the first 3 shots. And after that, I'm going to mix things around. So because of the panel. So Leonie, you work in one of the big fabric manufacturing organizations of Sri Lanka. Yes. And if you were asked the question, so why should business respond to the climate emergency? What would your answer be? And why do you think it hasn't happened up till now?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fernando. Actually, we have seen the world continues to change drastically with technology and information-driven globalization. And also we have seen how rapid growth of industrialization impact on the environment, what we experience today as climate change. Though we have limited understanding on what extent the world will be threatened by global warming and climate change, we will continue to experience the implication and risks associated with climate change in various scales. So as a responsible citizen as well as corporates, we have to identify and adopt more sustainable approaches into our ways of life and into our business modules and industrial structures to reduce impact and promote long-term resilience for climate change. So when speaking about the corporate sector, it is one of the key stakeholders in the global as well as the national sustainable development processes. So therefore, we have a larger responsibility and a commitment to make a positive impact to reduce the rising climate change and its implications, mainly from various innovative mechanisms and sustainable practices for the environmental well-being. So as one of the primary contributors of the increasing greenhouse emission levels, textile industry produce around 10% of annual global carbon emissions with its manufacturing processes and materials. So therefore,
landfill, by the way.
Yeah. Therefore,
and contributing to a lot of landfill also.
Yes, yeah. Dr. Fernando. So therefore, the textile sector has to make great steps in, especially in decarbonizing the entire industry to its maximum level and reducing soil and water pollution, and also minimizing the excessive energy consumption within the production. So mainly the use of synthetic fibers is considered as one of the major factors in the textile sector boom, but which allowed the industry to open up for low cost options. But emissions related to the production of synthetic materials such polyester is much higher than the other emissions related to production, that is due to its heavy dependence for fossil fuels. So also the synthetic products often can be found in landfills, as you mentioned, Dr. Fernando, and also being incinerated. Yes, and being incinerated due to the difficulties related to the recycling of the materials and products. So adding more to the same, the excessive water usage in the textile production represents the depletion of available freshwater reserves, and also the discharge of dye wastewater back into freshwater waste generate a massive pollution. So as we are aware, the textile industry pollution footprint has become a massive burden, but But we must also realize that the textile industry generates employment opportunities for a large segment of the unemployment and one of the largest contributor to the economic growth for many countries, including Sri Lanka. It is important that we look into innovative and sustainable modules with new systems and eco-friendly materials to make the production systems much greener and profitable at the same time.
Okay.
And
so,
also, yeah.
Why do you think we haven't been able to, in the world, respond to the climate emergency in the last 34 years? Why do you think that there has been such a delay?
Mainly, I will get this from the manufacturing sector, the textile manufacturing sector, Dr. Fernando.
Yeah.
Mainly, we should analyze the consequences and the worst impact due to the climate crisis. But the top management, mainly the top management, they know the big picture. But most of the time, our employees, they don't know the big picture. They don't know the consequences. They don't know the impacts because of this climate crisis. I think we should educate them. That is, I believe that is the main reason. They are the one who are maintaining they are the one who are running the production. They are the one who are using the energy. So we should educate them. The big picture.
Excellent.
We should show them the big picture.
Brilliant. So you think if we get the education down to everyone in our production facilities, that we will have a more sustainable operation going forward?
Yes.
But I will reserve my comments till I listen to Jehan also before we get into the first segment of our real Q&A. This is just a warm-up, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So Jehan, thank you very much for coming on board. So today, Jehan represents Sri Lanka's IT-backed operation sector in Sri Lanka, which is now slowly becoming as important as our tea sector for Sri Lankan revenue. And in the last couple of years, I think you were able to turn in close to $1 billion for the country, right, Jehan?
Right.
Slashcom.
Correct, that's right.
So that's obviously a future growth sector. And of course, I'm quite enamored by the fact that we have Google here, because this whole IT sector of the world, the Internet of Things companies are suddenly in the top 5 places in the world and no longer the oil companies. Thank God for that. But what is quite interesting is that these are also companies which have massive data centers operating all over the world, generating unbelievable amount of heat and using quite a bit of water. So Jehan, please tell us a little about Slashcom. And the real question is, why should Slashcom members, which are all businesses, take this climate emergency and respond to it? Or should they continue making billions of dollars and just continue as was?
Thank you very much for having me, Ravi. I'm really honored to be on this panel with so many experts. I passionately believe in making a difference through business. And globally, we see corporate activism increasing, the rise of the CEO activist. I was just reading a Harvard Business Review article on that, and it is often corporate leaders leading the charge. For instance, CEOs of 14 major food companies, Mars, General Mills, Coca-Cola, Unilever, they went to the government and lobbied for creating a strong accord that would meaningfully address the reality of climate change. So corporates have a significant voice and influence, and we must employ this for this emergency. So I'm delighted to be representing Slashcom today, which is the industry association for IT and BPM companies. Slashcom consists of 350 member companies and is the 4th largest export revenue earning industry for the country, USD $1.5 billion currently. And I'm very happy to say that Slashcom has prioritized an ESG initiative as one of its 5 pillars in our strategy. So our strategy included awareness creation, talent creation, regional development, also ESG.
Great. Great.
So we
That's
recognize
very
that
encouraging.
environmental, social, and governance criteria are becoming a vital factor for our industry, both from a business perspective, and it is closely aligned with business, and also for the survival of our planet. Increasingly, clients internationally will not work with companies here unless you have a strong ESG framework. So from a Slashcom perspective, we don't want to just limit our involvement to compliance, but we want to champion and to lead. So our vision is for ESG to be one of the key differentiators of Sri Lanka's IT BPM industry. We want Sri Lanka to be known as a responsible provider, as a green IT destination, and doing business with Sri Lanka means a positive social impact, a positive environmental impact.
Excellent, excellent. And that is brilliant. So basically, if the answer to all of this is if we don't do this, I mean, there is no business in a completely destroyed planet. So I think all the business leaders of the world better understand the fact that if we let the world cross the plus 1.5 degree centigrade barrier, and as per the last IPCC report, it was very clear we are talking about a $54 trillion loss to the global economy when we cross the 1.5 degree barrier because of a 20-foot sea level rise between 1.5 and 2 degrees. So all these businesses who are making brilliant money and brilliant results and brilliant quarterly results, all that money is going to get pretty much wiped away in a destroyed planet. So I think the one of the key things that we need to all bear in mind is there is no business in a destroyed planet. So if we want to keep having business, one good way to do that is to make sure that we give enough, give the priority the planet requires, because at the end of the day, there's no way we are going to say if the 20-30% of the world's GDP is getting wiped out as soon as we cross a 1.5 degrees centigrade, then all these gains are lost. Yeah, all these gains are lost. So I think there is one other point I just wanted to make to everyone, and this is a point I want to get your feedback on. So one of the hypotheses I have had in terms of why we have not acted with urgency on the climate emergency, and please shoot me down. I'm waiting for you to shoot me down if I'm going on the wrong track. One of the hypotheses I have is, you know, in 1987, the Brundtland report was extremely clear. I mean, I read that report, Our Common Future, by the former Prime Minister of Norway. And she was extremely clear that exiting fossil fuels is the solution to the problem. So how come 34 years later, we are burning more fossil fuels than ever before? How come our gigatons of carbon dioxide have gone from 20 to 34? How come ppm has gone from 280 to 420? So when I think about how did we let all this happen when we knew we had a crisis? One thought that has crossed my mind is, did all the leaders who were confronted with this research understand the science? Because if they understood the science, they would have responded very differently than if they didn't understand the science. And one of the hypotheses I have is a lot of the world's leaders, even today, aren't totally immersed in understanding the science. I mean, we have so many leaders in the world today, and I'm never going to name and shame anyone, but I mean, the COVID crisis has clearly shown us that there are leaders in the world who believe in science and who listen to the medical profession and who listen to the scientific advice, and there are leaders who say, to hell with the science, we need the economy back on track, let's get the economy back on track at any cost. So what my hypothesis is, I go back 34 years and look at all the various points like the Brundtland report, the Earth Summit, the famous Paris Agreement, and the Kyoto Summit in 1997. And actually, one of the reasons I think that decisions weren't taken is that maybe, and I'm only putting a maybe here, maybe they did not understand the science and the impact that all this is going to cause for us to have yet sustained fossil fuels going forward. So I think that's my little segue to our first real question and answer session. And this is going to be an opportunity for every one of you who is on the panel to share either your key vision for this area or some real brass-tacked, hard-nosed actions you've already taken. Because don't forget, this is about action to impact. That's the name of this whole conference. Because, I mean, loads and loads of conferences and reports have been written. And it's almost like everyone celebrated when the report was published. But, you know, those of us who are in the business world know that when we get a report, that's when we start the work. We don't celebrate the report. We start working on the report and saying, hey, presto, we've got a report. Now let's get to work. But what I have seen is a constant belief that developing more reports and more reports is important. I think for 34 years, we have said exit fossil fuels. How come we have not done that yet? Okay, so I'm going to move to Trinity, and I have great respect, Trinity, for Google. And like I said, this is a case I proudly present in all my teaching at INSEAD and also in the Institute of Directors in Luxembourg and in England, where I teach this course. So, Trinity, this is your platform. Tell us about the great things and how did Google end up doing these things? I mean, is it like Leonie said, the top leadership is taking the charge and like Jehan said, what is the secret that Alphabet and Google are totally on this case? Why? Your floor is yours, Trinity.
Thank you. I think Google is pretty unique in a variety of different ways. You know, we've been carbon neutral since 2007. We continue to evolve how we address sort of our growing business and in terms of our energy consumption and the impact we have. We also have established mechanisms that really encourage employee innovation and align sort of how we work internally in our culture around that. So it is a constant company-wide effort in terms of how do we leverage our core competencies to do better in the world, and that's our focus, and that's really what we've aligned around. How do we do what we do well? How do we organize the world's information so that the impact that we have on the world continues to be better and to improve? And how do we create a culture of 180,000 employees that feel empowered to bring what they bring to work every day and reimagine it in new ways so that they can continue to do better and do more things? And I think that's been a key in how we've been able to execute against some of the amazing things that we've accomplished as an organization. It's really about empowering innovation. It's about leveraging technology and innovation to do that. And I think we genuinely believe if we do what's right, the money and the profitability will follow. And that's been very unique in the business world, probably even a little radical to a lot of executives out there, but clearly it's worked. And so I think what we prove is when you do what's right, when you make decisions around how you consume energy and natural resources, when you align a culture of your organization to be empowered, not really knowing if they're doing, you know, every single thing that you exactly hired them to do, because really what Google hires you to do is just that. If you bring your best self to work and help us think about what's possible. So it has to be aligned from every every role within an organization. That's what I meant earlier when I said it's about taking kind of who you are at home, who you are at work, who you are in the world, and bringing those things together. And companies that do that, they see results. People are empowered, they're inspired, and the profitability does follow. And I think what's really interesting about Google as an example, probably we're clearly global and a household name, and people rely on us. But we've also proven over the last 20 years that sustainability works, that you can do it at scale, that you can accomplish these big, massive things, these overwhelming, seemingly problems can be resolved with innovation, with collaboration, and with a little empowerment. So we prove that it's possible at scale, and we prove that that it's also profitable, that it's good for the brand, it's good for business, and it's good for the planet. And those things are not mutually exclusive. They work really well together. But I do think what's important, and it's even a shift for Google, it's not just about what we've accomplished in terms of energy. It's not just about, it's not just about being carbon neutral. It's not just about, renewable energy matches, or even 24/7, which is our next goal. It's really about opening up those lessons that we've learned. It's about not keeping it just to ourselves. Not making it just about what Google does, but it's about opening up what we've learned, opening up our data, opening up our insights, our lessons to the rest of the world. How can we not just do it for ourselves, but how can we help others learn to do it, accelerate their ability to do it? Because I think it is about people having not understood the science, but it's also about people not understanding what to do and where to start. And so if you've got a lesson in that, it is your obligation, your responsibility, but also your opportunity to be profitable when you open up your expertise, when you open up your data, when you open up your core competencies, and you reimagine how they can be used for others.
Fantastic. Trinity, I'm going to stay with you for another moment, because I'm now moving into the segue of the two goals. I did some research of 234 companies, and the 4 goals that I picked for this session are the 4 goals that we found through the research would have the greatest impact on business. So I'm not saying that anyone should dismiss any of the other goals, but I'm only saying priority, because in life there's always a priority. I mean, if my house is on fire and I get a list of 17 things to do to get the fire out, I think my house will burn down. If I get a list of 2 things to do, I want to know what are those 2 things. And goal number 7, which is the drive and acceleration to renewable energy, which I think is really 34 years late, but I'm happy to hear that the UN is now beginning to see that as the focus. And I think we'll be right to say that if the world had to have one global target that every day should be monitored, it is goal number 7, and progress on goal number 7, because it is only when goal number 7 is sorted, we are going to have some traction. And I call goal number 7 and 12 the business model influencing goals, because your business model can be a fossil fuel driven business model, and your product life cycle and your product could be not contributing to sustainable consumption. So if every business on the planet focuses on goal number 7 and goal number 12 and relooks at their business model and says, aha, have we fixed these 2 very important models? And this is going beyond, of course, the company. It's also looking at your entire supply chain, because you can't say, okay, let them cut all the trees down and send us our raw material, and then, we have this very sustainable business model. No, you got to worry about that as well, right? And so I think with your permission, I want to move into the segment of goal number 7 and goal number 12, energy transition, renewable energy, and sustainable business model, because I think these are primary. So can you tell us a little about when Google started this goal number 7 focus, and the leadership that you are getting at a CEO level, board level, to make that happen, because with every other day I'm hearing something about Google wanting to make a move on goal number 7 and goal number 12. But of course, my only big question to you also is what's happening with the data centers, because I can see Google's data center explosion happening all over the world. And are we moving towards sustainable green data centers, which are increasingly going to be a problem? So goal number 7 and 12, Trinity, please give us some feedback on how your company is moving forward on that.
Sure, and they're very interrelated, definitely. But I agree with you, and I mentioned this earlier before we started. Where energy goes, the world follows, and it's not just about the energy industry, because we are all energy industry organizations. We all consume energy, and it is all of our responsibilities. So I'll answer your question in a couple of ways. So from a Google data center perspective, I think that's the core of where our missions come from as an organization, but not the only place, but certainly the core. And so we have been focused since, really it's intrinsic in our organization since we began, but really in around 2005 is when we set out to really make an impact in terms of our data centers and our energy consumption. So we started by going to a carbon neutrality through offsets. Then we went to 100% renewable energy match. That was about 5 years ago. And then now we have eliminated our carbon legacy back to the inception of our company. So the way our data centers operate today, we maintain that going forward. So they're actually carbon negative. But we also want to impact not just for our specific data centers, not just by carbon offsets or even direct renewable energy purchases. What we want to be able to do is change the energy consumption all over the world. And so that's where our next goal is, 24/7 in every region we operate in, because that's how we impact how energy is consumed globally in every region. That's how we encourage its accessibility, its affordability, right? And so that is, we can't do that by ourselves. That's absolutely something that has to be accomplished with our customers, our partners, our suppliers. So energy is the first supply chain, the first value chain that really must be opened up in order to be solved. And the great thing is we are all part of that value chain. So we all have an opportunity to exact change in that space. And so I think when we think about 7 and 12, they are very interrelated and correlated. You have to be able to understand your own energy consumption. You have to understand what it requires to operate your business, how you can support these sorts of goals and initiatives with growth, right? Google's grown 550%, but our energy consumption's only gone up 6%. And that's relatively flat. And that's because we try to innovate in every single way. How can we reduce our energy consumption? How can we continue to improve the access to carbon-free energy all over the world? And how do we maintain our operations in the way that organizations and consumers have grown accustomed to, right? How do we make sure that it's reliable? And so when we think about how we do that in our energy and how we open up supply chain energy value chains and start sharing data, start sharing expertise, start sharing innovation, how did Google figure out how much energy demands we needed on when we needed those and when our workloads needed to be optimized, what the impact of that was in each region? That's a lot of data, innovation, and insight. And opening that up to others is how we're going to help solve that. And it's the same for every other organization. You leverage technology, you leverage what you know about your own operations, you solve these problems, and you open it up to the rest of your supply chain and value chain to do the same thing.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what you've actually told us is that Google pretty much prioritizes goal 7 and goal 12 in terms of business models, because they know once they get that right, everything else is going to fall in place, right? And they have from 2005 aggressively focused on this, initially offsetting and now pretty much moving towards innovation. And I'm sure the new green data center opportunity is there for any company in the world to seize and be part of the Google supply chain. And I think and I'm very excited when I look at the new developments in the solar panel PVs that are increasing their efficiencies to 40-50% with perovskite. And then I'm also seeing the amazing development in energy storage with the supercapacitors. And I think these two areas and wind are going to really change the game. And now we see hydrogen also coming into the play. So this is all very exciting. Only if we have leaders like the leader of Google in every company in the world who says, if we get goals 7 and 12 right, everything else is going to be falling in place, guys. We're going to bust our targets by 200% every quarter. So, so you can do good and do well at the same time, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to quickly move to Jehan, our SLASCOM guy. Jehan, I want to bring you in at this stage because I can see a connection between everything that Trinity has said, that everything that SLASCOM is aspiring to do. So let's look at goals 7 and 12 for SLASCOM's various companies. What kind of game plan do you see happening? Where is SLASCOM today in terms of renewable energy to drive those companies? And what changes are you planning? And hey, is there an opportunity for Sri Lanka to become a Google data center which is green? Hey, I don't know. I'm just driving the question. Is there an opportunity? SLASCOM, over to you. Now, I didn't plan all this. This is all as I see the story evolving. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ravi. While ESG is a new initiative for SLASCOM, several of our member companies have already launched praiseworthy initiatives. A leading software company has invested in renewable energy and all their data centers are running on renewable energy. Wow. Several of our companies have initiatives to reduce travel, including scope 1 to scope 2 and 3. And the pandemic has accelerated this change, and the new ways of working with more hybrid work arrangements, online meetings, I believe is going to be a permanent fixture and reduce business travel. I think it's here to stay. Reducing energy consumption by replacing desktops with laptops. LED lighting is something several of our companies have taken on, and initiatives such as cycle to work.
Wow.
And some of the future plans our member companies are considering, including compensating energy consumed with renewables, consolidating data centers, loans to employees for vehicles, replace them with electric loans for electric vehicles.
Yeah, please don't give them loans for diesel vehicles. I mean, that's going to be a crisis.
Absolutely. You know, why not a Tesla? You know, encourage our members with data centers and telecom towers to invest in renewable energy. Encouraging our tech parks. Now we are in discussions currently for a series of tech parks to invest in renewable energy. Encourage investment in solar panels amongst some. So those are some of the specific initiatives that we were talking about. I was discussing today with the head of sustainability and facilities of one of our leading companies, member companies. And he was saying, you know, how fantastic it would be if every data center and every tower that is being erected is powered by renewable energy sources.
Absolutely. That's the only kind of data center I'm hoping will exist in the next 5 years, because we actually cannot let fossil fuels take that on as well. These data centers have to be powered by renewables. So that's a brilliant move you all are going forward with. So,
and if I could quickly articulate something, our new chairperson, you know, we are very proud that in our over 10 years of history, today we have the first female chair of SLASCOM. And SLASCOM, we have several goals, including a workforce of 200,000. And she articulated, we want to add an ESG goal to be carbon positive by 2025. So we are commencing an industry-wide survey to baseline our membership, where our membership stands with some industry measures. Thereafter, define industry best practices and a code of conduct, have annual measurement, which is in line with international frameworks such as GRI or the SASB US standard. So those are some of the specific initiatives that and interventions that we are looking at, and we would be honored and delighted to have a Google Data Center here. In fact, I think there's an initiative led by His Excellency the President himself, and discussions, I believe, ongoing. So Trinity, we would be honored to have you in Sri Lanka.
Right. Now, travel to Sri Lanka, I don't know when that's going to be possible. But the good news is that we have an ambition, which is to create green data centers. And I think there are two key elements of a green data center. Number one is that it's powered 100% by renewable sources and not by fossil fuel sources. And we can't say it came through the grid and we don't know how the grid delivered it. So we've got to create our own grids and create our I mean, one of the things that I would seriously recommend, Jehan, that you'll look at is breaking away from the grids and creating your autonomous energy supply with batteries and solar or wind and solar, where you say this is off the grid, this is our autonomous center, because that is really the way the world has to go. I mean, every home should be an energy center, by the way. And now that all of us are working from our homes, why not put a solar panel in every one of the workers' homes and say, we are going to shut our offices down, you work from home and deliver us the stuff, but we are going to make sure all the energy you use in the home is also renewable. So then it becomes a win-win-win all the way. Great. Let's quickly go to our Haley's lady, Leonie. Tell us about goals 7 and 9, and then I want to close that session with Anne winding things down for us on this session. On the first question, goals 7 and 9, Leonie, we believe are the, if one had to select two goals that every business should follow, these are the two. So tell us about how Haley's Fabric is following 7 and 12. Sorry, 7 and 12.
So over last few years, Haley's Fabric became conscious of our impact on climate change, and also we have taken necessary action to reduce the carbon footprint. And especially, we have made a major milestone on the latter part of 2020. That is, it is none other than the commitment for the science-based target initiatives. Also, to keeping the global temperature rising below 1.5 Celsius degrees. Currently, we are working on target setting process of the science-based target initiatives. Our main target is to address our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, because out of the total carbon footprint, 82% is from scope 1 and scope 2 emission. Scope 1 emission is mainly from the furnace oil and LP gas emissions, and scope 2 is grid-connected electricity. Wow. So we have came up with a permanent solution to reduce emission of grid-connected electricity by solar panel installation. Good. So we have installed 9,000 solar panels across 18,000 square meters, and the capacity is 4.6 megawatt. This is the largest single rooftop solar installation in Sri Lanka. This covers 20% of our total electricity consumption. Also, it reduces 15% of our total carbon footprint. And also, we know in the textile manufacturing process, we need quite a lot of steam, mainly for textile dyeing and finishing processes. So out of total steam requirement, 75% is from biomass boiler generation. So altogether, from the solar installation and the biomass boiler generation, altogether the renewable energy percentage is 63%. Currently, it's 63%. So apart from these massive projects, we have implemented a set of projects related to energy savings, such as introduction of variable frequency motors, optimizing the compressed air systems, and eliminating inefficient lighting, so on. So almost, and also I believe, as I mentioned earlier, also I believe the most important thing for a successful sustainable journey, mainly to follow the goal number 7 and 12, the key factor is the top management commitment as well as the contribution from the bottom layer.
Absolutely. So I'm a huge believer that wherever you have a CEO or a national leader who understands the science and gives leadership, everybody else will then follow.
Dr. Fernando, here actually I have to mention my top management team because they are very keen on this area. I should mention my chairman and my MD and the top management team for their utmost support and the leadership to implement sustainable process in the company.
Right. Now, what you need to do is to go from 20% to 100% in the next 5 years and go at 125 miles per hour and get this done so that Helix Fabric can shine out and say, you know what, we are 100% renewable energy driven story. Have you all invested in any batteries, in storage batteries, or not yet?
Not yet, Dr. Fernando.
Okay, so I would strongly recommend that the apparel sector of Sri Lanka should get together along with the IT sector and make a proposal to the national policy makers and say, let's bring the batteries in. Because if you have, how many, 12,000 solar panels, did you say?
9,000.
9,000 solar panels. Just imagine the 9,000 solar panels, you're only harnessing about 25% of their energy because by night time, they are all gone. So just imagine if you had storage batteries to supplement those 9,000, you will then have energy for the whole month with the 9,000 with the storage. So seriously think about storage, because storage is going to be a game changer with the solar panels you already have. And I think I'm going to ask Jehan to work closely with the Fabric Association of the country and say, guys, make a proposal to bring the batteries in, because the batteries are already there. Jehan, I'm trying to make all these business connections between all of you by the time this panel is done, okay? Because at the end of the day, I see amazing opportunity, because unless we bring solar batteries in, we are going to be always dependent on the grid. We've got to move. 7 and 12 is battery plus solar, not solar alone. So think about how you all can unify to create those green data centers and to create green manufacturing apparel centers. And then we should be, only then I think we should invite Trinity and say, come check us out. When we've set them up, when it's all 100% green. What do you think, Anne? So with that, I'm going to quickly move to Anne on 7 and 12 and to get her take on why business need to focus on 7 and 12. Because at the end of the day, the business model is what's going to really drive the business strategy. So if your business model is flawed, your strategy is going to be flawed. So please tell us something about from where you see things as a UN person, because you're talking to 8,000 to 12,000 companies in UN Global Compact. And as World Economic Forum, you also have a huge impact with all these companies in the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, etc. And how does these two organizations and even Wood PLC focus on 7 and 12 in terms of their work? I think you need to unmute, Anne.
Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more about goals 7 and 12. And thank you for all the great input from all the speakers. So I just want to go, before I go into that with the business model, because this is really where the SDG ambition is kicking in. I just want to go back when you spoke about 40 years back in time, because it's not like that the world haven't done anything. So I happen to be Danish, and Denmark is actually the #1 country in the world on clean energy. And yes. And I know when I bring that up, people always tells me that's because the weather in Denmark is exactly equipped for really being good, you know. But that cannot be the only thing, because somebody needs to have started the whole initiative around it, right? So the reason why Denmark is like, you have Ørsted, which is number 2 most sustainable company in the world. You have Vestas, you have the government really supporting all of this. And for you who follow the Danish evolution in this field, you will see that it's like, I call it the Silicon Valley of the world in the energy sector.
Yes.
But the reason why, and I think this is why what we see right now, because even though you have like they have a Google, incredible leadership, incredible people, and you also see the initiative that we discussed in Sri Lanka. It is a combination of the government coming out with new regulations. It's a combination of what we see now in the United States and Joe Biden have taken over, that the focus on regulation and also investment coming from the government, because we talk about some really solid infrastructure. One thing is what the business can do with inside the business and in their collaboration with their partners, but when you talk about, really shifting the whole thing, it's infrastructure, it's sustainable infrastructure. Sustainable infrastructure is a huge investment. It's a huge shift that is going on. So you need to have a combination of course, CEOs who want to change, who see the reason for changing. You need to have it for government. Government needs to come in and put regulations, investment, and not to forget, we need to see the whole investment market, so family offices, investment capital, coming in and pushing this. And before I touch on goal number 7 and 12, I just want to say, if you have not yet, I believe you have, are ramping up to COP, the 2 first week in November in Glasgow. When you study the agenda really in details, you will see that they talk about no more investment in fossil fuel, realignment capital into renewable energy. It talks about making a whole new energy sector where there's a huge focus on creation of new type of jobs, because it will have a big impact on the job market also, right? So I think that the question about the change that we're seeing now that you asked in the beginning, why is this happening now? I really think it has to do with that people understand the urgency. We just went through COVID, but also that you are seeing regulations and you see investment coming in for the capital market, family offices, and also coming in from the government, and that the businesses understand this is key. And that leads me into goal number 7 and goal number 12. First of all, goal number 12, and that was the reason why I created SDG Ambition, because I was sitting actually together with the former CEO of UN Global Compact, Lisa Kinko, and this is now 3 years ago. We were sitting at a Danish bakery outside the UN building, and we were really sad because the high political forum had just taken place, and they came out with the report that we were going backwards. It was kind of like, how can we go backwards? Because we're doing so much. But we realized we're doing things in silos, and it's still just it's nice to be sustainable, but it's definitely not the core, right? This is 3 years back in time. And then at that time I was working at SAP, and where I've been working for 21 years and have done SAP implementations all over the world. And I saw, and that is really where we built the SDG Ambition methodology, then led up to 10 ambitions. So what you see, what is shifting now is that CEOs and the C level come out with a vision and mission about what the company needs to do. And the next thing is then to look at the management of the company and the board of the company. And that is where Russell Randers came out with a report for 2 years ago, where they came out with the 20 years anniversary of UN Global Compact, where they saw there was hardly that many people in the C-suite and in the board who actually knew about sustainability. Nothing wrong in this, it's just that it hasn't been a focus area, right? Then the third thing about the SDG Ambition framework is to see, okay, we get it, we need to really become sustainable, we need to measure up against the 17 global goals, goal number 7, goal number 12, but then we realize we don't have the data, and if we have the data, some of the data, they are not in real time. We can't do real-time measurements. And that's the reason why so many companies now are focusing on carbon reporting, which has been super difficult. Even though we know how to calculate, we can't get the data, right? Because it didn't focus on it. And I just want to stop 1 second on that piece, because it is interesting, and I'm as guilty as anybody on this call and anybody in my generation, sorry to the youth of the world, is that the last 20, 30 years working with technology, if you look at Michael Hammer, if you look at Six Sigma, if you look at Lean, if you look at all those classical implementation, optimization frameworks. None of those frameworks had looked at sustainability, right? None of them had looked at sustainability. So when you did enterprise software implementations, it was about optimization and efficiency, nothing about sustainability. And we thought we did the right thing. We did the right thing. We don't even understand that now when we look at it backwards, right? Okay. The second pillar in the SDG ambition framework is all about goal number 12. It is where you go in, and this is for me the key thing when I speak to the business. When you design a new supply chain, when you design a new product, because design thinking, oh my God, it's been around for some time, right? Everybody's doing design thinking. But if you just go 10 years back in design thinking and ask, so what was your key design principle? Oh, innovation and user experience, right? Where was the sustainability piece? It was not there, right? And now you kind of sit backwards and think about, oh my God, how could I do that, right? So I was part of the whole design thinking with Stanford, and because SAP was part of this whole thing with Hazel-Plattner's Institute, but sustainability was not part of the key design principles. And we know how design thinking studios were set up at companies around the world. So that's the first thing. Make sure when you design, whatever industry you're in, that sustainability is your key design principle.
Brilliant.
Then you go in and you look at your supply chain, procurement processes. This is what triggered me for 3 years ago to create SDG Ambition. I was sitting in a great situation, advocating for sustainability across the world with all SAP's great companies of the world across 25 industries. Went really well, but then I saw that nobody was really changing the way they were using enterprise software systems. They were not changing their supply chains. This is what they do today, right? And that is where, I realized, okay, something is not working here. And the second piece of the SDG Ambition is marketing and communication. And if you begin to look at marketing and communication, companies was very early on promoting themselves as a sustainable company. And that's where the whole word about greenwashing, people talk a lot about that now. And people are so concerned about greenwashing because they kind of realize they probably have been doing greenwashing because there was a CEO commitment and let us then communicate on the CEO agenda. But everything in between about actually changing the business and changing the product was somehow left in the unknown, right? And that's the reason why I couldn't agree more on, and you hear it with all the examples here, what Google is doing and what you guys, the whole thing is happening in Sri Lanka. You really need to get into the nitty-gritty details. You need to go from, my ambition is to drive the clean energy. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, emission 1, 2, and 3. Okay, how do I bring that down to my business process layer? How do I bring that down to my technology? That's the first, when you do that, you then realize, and SDG Ambition does that, then you realize, holy smoke, we actually do not have the real-time data to do the reporting, so we can't even figure out how far we are from 1.5. Okay, we're figuring that out. Then the real job starts, because then you need to drive the transformation. And this is another thing. So I came out with I'm a science fiction writer, so I came out with a science fiction book at World Economic Forum for 2 years ago, and because, again, guilty as anybody in my age, is that everything we learned from Lean Six Sigma was linear improvement. We improve linear, right? We do things a little bit better than we did before. But you can't use a linear mindset to go in and do exactly what Google is doing or what anybody on the call is doing. We are talking about really doing huge change. And this is where you can say, and this is for me probably the most exciting thing about what is happening right now. You have CEO who go in and do a commitment to 2050. In 2050, think about how the world look like. I call it the zero world. How do the net zero world look like in 2050? That's where you need to start. You need to think of, forget about today, think about the net zero world in 2050. How should that look like? And then you need to do time travel back to today. Then you will know what the gap is. Then you will know what to do. And that's the reason why the book that I created was really about, it was a book where I created the science fiction mindset to the private sector. It's for the private sector to use, people also call it scenario planning, to help them to drive this journey. So I couldn't agree more with you. Design principle is goal number 7, and the goal number 12 is what we need to fix, which is right now in another good place, right? So I wanted to, that's my input to the conversation.
Thank you so much, and you have done 2 things. I've really enjoyed Copenhagen many times, and I must say we had the head of International Global Compact at that time was Søren Petersen. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
Søren? Okay, so Søren used to always tell us about Denmark, and he had all his meetings in Denmark, so we were there. And I must say, Denmark along with Sweden, Finland, and Sweden, are already, in terms of new electric car sales, are about 70 to 80% of all their sales are electric. So I can see that there's a movement happening in those countries. So well done. And thanks for confirming that 7 and 12 are the big goals. So we are now moving into our second segment of questions. And I want to start with, once again, go to Leonie. Leonie, we want to talk about goal number 9 and 15. And goal number 9 is about innovation and infrastructure development. And goal number 15 is about everything to do with the life on land in terms of deforestation and supply chains. And, you know, most people can't see the connection between a tree and water. And, you know, if there are no trees, there'll be no rain. And if we attack the rain cycle at the rate they're doing it in Brazil, I mean, very soon we won't have oxygen. I mean, if you remember, there was a time when we would look at Brazil and say 20% of our oxygen is coming from Brazil. Today it's 0%. Why? Because we're thrashing the trees. So tell us a little about goal number 9 and 15 and Haley's. And then I want to quickly move to Google and Jehan, and I think Anne should come in at the end because she sees the Global Compact and the the Economic Forum thinking, because I like that to come in as a nice roundup to all the discussions. So tell us about 9 and 15 and what Haley's are doing on those two things. Yeah.
Yeah, so moving to sustainable innovation and infrastructure, goal number 9 and goal number 9, we have mainly focused on two ways, product innovation and also process innovation. So
Okay.
under product innovation, we have recently successfully commercialized natural dyeing process instead of synthetic dyes. That is a natural dyeing process mainly using biodegradable materials such as tree leaves and tree barks. So
Wow.
as an example, we have developed colorants from mahogany barks, and by using the waste wooden pieces of timber remained from furniture industry. Also, we have used waste tea to get the colorants. So we have conducted single impact life cycle assessment to compare the GHG emission between synthetic dyes and also the natural dyes. So the result gives us 36% GHG reduction from natural dye process.
Beautiful. From
It's
synthetic.
massive.
From
Yes.
synthetic.
Yes. Compared to the synthetic dyes, it's a 36% reduction of GHG emissions.
Excellent.
So, and also all our buyers, they are mainly from North America and Europe. They are very
What are the
keen
brands?
on.
What are the brands you satisfy?
Yes, basically we are doing Nike, Victoria's Secret, PVH, and Intimissimi, Decathlon. We are doing quite a lot.
Now, Nike must be using a whole bunch of synthetic material, right?
Yes.
Now, how are you going to convert those guys?
No, they are doing a portion of cotton as well.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes. So
Good.
we did the life cycle assessment, and it gives 36% reduction. And also our buyers are very keen on this product. And from this innovation, we are planning to reduce our GHG emission in future. And also under process sustainability, we have introduced some low liquor ratio dyeing machines. That is where we can consume less water, also less energy, and also less chemicals. Then we can reduce the GHG emission further. And under the SDG 15, life on land, we are maintaining a good natural capital because our building to green ratio is 40 to 60. Building percentage is 40, and we have a green belt, 60% green belt we have.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yes. So also we do have 9 acres biodiversity park maintained by the company. And we are working closely with the Biodiversity Secretariat under Ministry of Environment to enrich the wetland park and planning to go for a carbon offsetting process in future by using our natural capital.
Okay, that's brilliant, Leonie. I mean, please don't get me wrong, but I must say I'm not a big fan of carbon offsetting. I'm a big fan of carbon negative. Yes. I'm not a big fan of carbon zero. I'm a big fan of going carbon negative, because at the end of the day, we need to really get serious about this whole story, because we are now in a world that cannot ever move this kind of story forward. Okay, let's quickly move to Google. Goal number 9 and 15. I mean, I can almost do the presentation for you on your innovation, but I'm going to listen to Trinity, because I mean, I'm so amazingly amazed by how AI has been brought into a lot of the innovation work that you're doing. So tell us a little about innovation and your goal number 15, yeah?
Well, I can say that I think that, and Anne alluded to this as well, sustainability is really a data problem at its core. And when we want organizations to act to change the way that they operate and do better, they need to understand where they are so that they can make the right interventions to where they're going. And so ultimately, when you don't have the right data and when you don't know how to use that data and when that data is disconnected, that becomes really challenging. Our waste and what we throw away can actually become a resource for us, an opportunity for us, both from a resource, from an innovation, and from an infrastructure financial investment perspective. Right? We can move away from closed and siloed value chains. But we have to be able to connect our data. We have to have real-time information. We have to have localized information. And that means that our public policy, our local governments, our small businesses, and our large businesses all need to come together. We need localization, and we need infrastructure to support circular value chains. And that's what's kind of missing today. What we see is if you can start opening up how you run your operations to your suppliers upstream and downstream, and that continues to connect, like you require your suppliers to do the same, we can start to see where our data has gaps, we can digitize, and then the innovation can accelerate. But we cannot do it in a silo, and we cannot do it by ourselves, and it must be with public and private sector cooperation. I think if you think in terms of contextual data insights, right, we have to not only focus on, to your point, carbon offsets and carbon specifically, we do need to think about all of the other components that go into our operations. What is the water impact? How can we optimize that? What is the animal impact? What is the human impact? And that all requires massive amounts of data that comes from all of these disparate locations. It may come from private industry, it may come from scientific community, it may come from all of the above, right? One of the things that Google's been working on for a long time is our Earth Engine platform, which is how we incorporate lots of different public data sets, proprietary data. It's around 90 petabytes of data at this point, but it's about leveraging these geospatial tools and insights, creating AI, enabling other organizations to innovate by bringing that disparate data, making it harmonious so that you can understand deforestation on a global scale, so that you can understand what the or increasing and what it is specifically that's making that happen, so that you can take what the global surface water values are and apply those in regional nuanced areas. You can understand weather on a global scale and how you're able to leverage it, how population and regional impacts change that. But all of these things have to be able to come together. And right now we have pieces and parts. We have varying levels of comfort with data and innovation. And so every technology company out there has a responsibility to impact these changes just as much as we're looking at the fossil fuel industry and the mining industry. We absolutely have to expect from our technology companies for us to be able to bring what we know forward to close these data gaps, to leverage AI and automation, to accelerate what we could do if we were just still continuing to do them manually. We know how to do this as technology companies, and it's our responsibility to show the world how to take this data, make sense of it, and accelerate change.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trinity. I think Google has a huge opportunity to impact the entire planet, because there is no two people in the planet who doesn't know the word Google. They might pronounce it a little differently, but I think everybody knows Google. And I think Google has a huge opportunity to really bring sustainability to every single human being who uses Google, and tells them that their carbon emissions matter, and that every single one of us needs to now make a change, because the planet is not going to be saved by a few companies. It's not going to be saved only because the Scandinavian countries got it right. We need every country on the planet, every leader on the planet understanding this is a climate emergency, and this is not just climate change. This is now a catastrophe that is about to come on the planet if we don't get this right. Jehan, I want to quickly bring you in on the innovation side. Now, one of the things that Trinity has talked about, I mean, I want to get back to the data centers, because I'm totally, one of my jobs was nanotechnology. So forgive me for running up and down the nanotechnology road. I mean, I set up the first nanotechnology institute in the country, and I'm proud to say we got some brilliant US patents. Now, one of the areas that has always been my passion is the area of water desalination with graphene. Now, the reason I'm talking about this to the entire group today is because if you want to have data centers which are going to consume a lot of water to ensure it's cool, one of the reasons many of the countries who have data centers are now saying we are putting a moratorium on data centers is because they're running out of water to cool the place. And this is going to be one of the biggest challenges, because 70% of the planet is going to be water scarce by 2025, especially the Southern Hemisphere nations. So we are already looking at a crisis. So here's what I think should be the solution. And this is where data centers start using desalinated water using graphene, because graphene-led desalination is going to easily become the cheapest desalination on the planet, because a sheet of graphene, when you put the salt water through it, captures all the salt molecules, and hey presto, you have fresh water. And then if you have graphene desalinated water circulating in the entire data center, you can keep reusing that water, and then ultimately you don't need that much more water, because the same water is getting recycled 100 times. So I think, Jehan, one of the areas that you all might seriously look at is putting a prototype for what a green data center is going to look like. Batteries, solar panels, wind power, and graphene-led desalination. And if you want the graphene, there's a company in Sri Lanka already exporting graphene. That's one of the companies I work with, because I got them to do that. Because I said, graphene is going to be the next gold on the planet. So don't wait till everyone comes there. Let's set the plant up. We already are turning 5 tons per annum, and it's doing about $700 per kilo. I'm telling you, graphene is the new gold that's going to come in. So what I want to really share with you, Jehan, in terms of SLASCOM, start thinking about creating that green data center. Use the technology we have. We have the world's purest graphene in Sri Lanka, by the way, 99.8% pure. So we have the best graphene in the planet. In fact, our graphite was used even in the space shuttle, by the way, in the cone. So we've got some serious kudos if we get this graphene story right. Okay, so on innovation, I just want to share that thought with you. Then we can get Trinity down here and seriously think about creating an amazing green data center in Sri Lanka. And okay, so we are slowly but surely running out of time. So I've been getting gentle reminders from Ashan to get things into a final stretch. So I think what I'm going to do now is ask every single one of you, and I've been extremely honored to have such an amazing panel of people passionate about having an urgency for the climate emergency, because I'm telling you, I get very impatient with people who don't have an urgency for the climate emergency, and I'm thrilled to see every single one of you on the panel had an urgency for the climate emergency and are using the word emergency. I mean, I think a lot of the world's leaders yet think this is, just climate change. So, what are we getting excited about? In fact, I was waiting at the IPPC report to hear them use the word climate emergency, and they did not use it. And I was quite depressed for about a couple of days, 24 hours after that, because this is why people aren't getting the subject, Okay, so what I'm going to call upon every one of you to do is, if you had to give one key message to every single business leader who's listening to this program today, or to every young graduate, because this program is touching about 3,000-4,000 young graduates in universities, what will be the two key messages? What's the big message you're going to give to business leaders, and what's the big message you're going to give young graduates in terms of what we have been discussing today, right? So I'm going to start that with Anne. Anne, what are your two big messages to our business leaders and our young graduates? Because finally, as Brundtland said, sustainability is about meeting today's needs, but ensuring tomorrow's needs are met. At the moment, I think the Greta Thunberg generation are not going to have any resources at the rate we are going. Okay, so what are your two messages, Anne, to the two target audiences? And everyone, please think about the two messages you want to give.
Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, and that's both for the people who are in the business today and the young generation, is that sustainability is the key design principle for everything we do, and how we live, what we do, what we create, what we shape. Secondly, we do need to understand that there is a huge technology gap. In the climate area, there is a 70% technology gap. It doesn't mean that we don't have the technology capabilities, but we haven't built the solutions. So I'm calling on companies, government, the young generation, NGOs, startup, academia, to begin to design and build those solutions. And then the third thing, I know you said two, but the third thing, I think people need to accept that it's totally okay that we don't know exactly what to do, and that we are on a journey, an unknown journey, but that journey, just like when we were on an unknown journey when the vaccine should come, it's the same thing here. We don't know yet all the solutions that is required to bring us into the net zero world. And that's okay, as long as we come together and work on it.
Thank you so much, Anne. I hope every business leader got motivated and inspired to understand that there is no longer time for discussion. There is only time for action. And let's treat the climate emergency like an emergency and not like one of those illnesses we can keep people in the waiting room and hope and pray that the illness goes away before the doctor comes. So let's really move forward on that. Thank you so much, Anne. Okay, I'm going to move to Jehan. Jehan, you operate in Sri Lanka, and there are quite a few Sri Lankan business leaders listening in today. And if you had to give them a very strong message for the future of how they should run their business and what they should do based on the 4 goals that we talked about, what is your key message to them?
We have to take a long-term view of this, and sustainability has been proven by data to be good for business. It will mean more clients will want to work with you. The environment will support you. Your workforce will be healthier and more productive. It is good for business. It means eventually lower costs of operations. And my message to the youth, as Leonie said, keep fighting. You have the right idea. Keep fighting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And I sincerely hope SLASCOM has a great impact in Sri Lanka. And I would strongly recommend that SLASCOM makes its vision to be green by 2025, so that everything that SLASCOM does is make it green 2025. And I'm telling you, all the world's businesses will be hunting Sri Lanka down if you do that, because everybody else is yet discussing whether to go green or not. I'm saying run green. Don't wait for anyone to prompt you anymore. Yeah, Leonie, you, Jehan, you have something else to say? Yes.
Yes, no, so SLASCOM has also just formed a foundation, SLASCOM Foundation, with the tagline Tech for Good. And we just heard the inspiring story of a young man in Sri Lanka, 15 years old, who has pioneered the first tuk-tuk, which is powered by solar power. So we were just having a discussion with the SLASCOM board. Is this somebody whom we can support? And we just heard the fantastic news. Bill Gates is pledging to support $1.5 billion towards the US infrastructure bill. So there is positive news coming.
Excellent, excellent. You know, Jehan, one thing I am quite shocked about is in a country like Sri Lanka, which has 365 days of sunlight, why our renewable energy quotient from solar power and wind power is about 1%. I mean, seriously, we should be like 90% solar power. We've got the sun shining on us every day. Okay, Leonie, what is your message to business leaders, and what is your message to the youth of Sri Lanka? And you're very much in that group yourself. What is your big message to them?
For the youth, actually, when talking about minimizing the carbon footprint, we often talk about large corporations, industries, and business with high emission rates. But we hardly discuss about small changes that we could bring into our lives. So it is also essential that we talk about our choices as environmental friendly consumers to reduce our own carbon footprint in the world. The small changes that we make today, including food consumption, energy usage, and even fashion, can create a bigger difference tomorrow. So consumer has the power, the youth has the power to shape the global, social, and economic order to and push the bigger corporations and even the government to make the necessary changes for a greener tomorrow. And for the business sector, actually, I would like to request from all the heads in the manufacturing sector in Sri Lanka, please align with the SDGs to and analyze the consequences and analyze the impacts because of the climate crisis, and act on climate emergency to make a better future.
Excellent. I'm very happy that you used the word climate emergency. Okay, now we go to Trinity. Trinity, you already are in a position of great influence, and one of the things that I want to impress upon every single human being, especially when I teach in Luxembourg and in Dublin, I always say, please think of the amazing stewardship you have by being put in this position. It is not by chance that some of us get these positions. But when you are now placed in that position, then you must use that position for great impact, because you are now a steward and you have a responsibility. So Trinity, what is your message to business leaders of the world and the youth of the world?
Well, I hope I don't disappoint, but sustainability is the biggest opportunity that exists right now. It is the biggest opportunity for our youth, and it is the biggest opportunity for our business sector. There is enough solutions and innovation that's needed that there is a place for everyone in sustainability. And so, you know, as big as Google is, we can't make enough solutions to support what's needed by ourselves. So every organization, every individual out there needs to support the technology innovations that we all need. And so use your assets, use your expertise, your infrastructure, your relationships, and even your waste to bring new solutions forward. Don't keep doing the same thing. Have the courage to shift, have the courage to innovate, have the courage to collaborate and open up, and we can accelerate the action that we all need. And you will not fail. You won't, because we're already going in one direction. We can only shift towards positive, and that will be a good thing, right? So don't be afraid to fail. The data has proven that even just a slight shift in this direction is good for business. So let's accelerate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Trinity. I think the world needs to hear leaders like you. And my wish is that every single one of you begin to even strengthen your positions in the various organizations you're working in. Because one thing that I found in all my research was, finally, if the top people, the CEO level, the managing directors, the board directors, and lots of the work I do is with board directors, once they get on fire for this, there's no stopping it. But if they aren't totally convinced, we have problems. So ascend to those positions to all of you. My final message to everyone having listened to this amazing panel is just two messages. Number one thing that I heard from almost every single one of our panelists was walk the talk. You know, one of the things that I have found is if we are not walking the talk, we cannot talk the walk. And I realized that as when I started teaching, in the business school and at INSEAD and various places, I said, how can I stand in front of an audience and get passionate about sustainability when my lifestyle doesn't reflect that? And I made some massive changes, and I made sure that our home was 100% solar powered. I made sure the vehicle I drove was no longer a diesel brand, but I was very happy to go for a hybrid and electrics are not yet big in Sri Lanka, unfortunately. And I basically corrected myself before I started teaching, because I wanted to be able to teach only when I could walk the talk. I didn't want to leave any room for anyone to turn around and say, but this is what you teach and this is what you live. So I think that's the one message I got from everyone, you know, walk the talk, walk the talk. If you want to be a sustainability leader in business, first walk the talk. You can't come driving in a four-wheel drive that is guzzling diesel and then tell the whole company, get excited about sustainability. That's not going to happen, okay? You change first. So that's the first message. The second and last message I want to leave with everyone before I hand over the panel and everyone to Ashan is, please understand this is an emergency. You know, when people talk about emergencies, we don't treat, if our house is on fire, we don't say, let's think about putting the fire off next week. We don't say, let's, you know, wait, hope and pray the fire goes away. We start doing whatever the heck we can do immediately. And I think the world's business leaders are going to be the ones that are going to change the word emergency, because I think the business leaders, if they get their act together, and if we set around getting world business leaders totally on fire with urgency for the climate emergency, we are going to have a planet for all our future generations. If we don't do that, I can assure you all the hot business strategies and corporate strategies and GDP growth strategies and everything that the world has is going to get washed away or drowned away or burnt away. And then we are going to look back and say, we don't even have a drop of fresh water to drink. we don't have a breath of fresh air to breathe, what happened? And everyone will have to turn around and say, you know what, we were worried about the next quarter's results. And that's what happened. So guys, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have Anne, Trinity, Leonie, and Jehan. If nothing else, get inspired and do great things for the planet with urgency and begin to walk the talk. I'm going to now hand you over to Ashan, who is the man behind all of this, and kudos to him for organizing this. Ashan, the floor is yours. It has been a great privilege and honor to meet all of you virtually, and I sincerely hope I meet all of you in real life before it's too long. All the best as you inspire the planet's leadership, because you are the leaders who make this happen. Ashan, over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. Ravi, for that insightful session. It is absolutely important for the business sector to play that critical role in addressing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. If the business sector could drive their decisions and make their choices align with sustainability, it is absolutely going to make an impact to the both people and the planet. So today we mark the last day of the Action to Impact National Launch. As many of you are aware, Action to Impact is a multi-stakeholder national platform in bringing people together to take action towards a sustainable country. So we are mobilizing businesses, young people, academia, and even government institutions to come together to drive these actions to make our country an inclusive and sustainable country. So starting from 7th of August, we had our opening ceremony featuring one of the outstanding individuals in the country and internationally. We also had the message from the Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. 8th of August, we had our social forum in highlighting the social aspect of the Sustainable Development Goals. The forum was titled Build Back Better and Sustainable in Post-COVID Era. 10th of August, we had one of the most important sessions, that is the Action to Impact Media Roundtable, the role of media and communication in achieving Sustainable Development Goals. We believe that the media is a powerful tool in shifting the mindsets of people. It can bring powerful message to the community and, more importantly, take the sustainability dialogue to the grassroots community. On the August 12th, we had the International Youth Day Forum, specifically focusing on youth innovation in creating a sustainable Sri Lanka. We were able to feature the stories of 6 outstanding young professionals and to share their adventurous journey to where they are today. And with that International Youth Day Forum, we had one of the most successful forums in the Action to Impact Week yesterday. That is the Environmental Forum of the Action to Impact Week. So we titled Environmental, Restorative and the Regenerative Actions to Sustain Sri Lanka's Ecosystem. We had one of the biggest reach yesterday, and today we are here to have the Business Forum of the Action to Impact National Week. Transformative change is absolutely possible when there is a collaborative effort. So we really need to initiate that intergenerational dialogue in Sri Lanka, or a journey which is driven by intergenerational effort. So we need to bring both actions and energy of young people and the knowledge and experiences of the old. Today, the world is connected than ever before. We have the largest generation of young people that the world has ever seen. So the world is way powerful than before. But at the same time, the challenges that the world is facing is far greater than before. So we really need to take actions today. So it is time to transform our ideas, innovations, and creativity into an action. That way, we could make our world a better place, and of course, Sri Lanka a sustainable and inclusive country for all of us to live in peace. So with that note, I would also like to thank hardworking and dedicated volunteers of the Road to Rise and G17 University Ambassadors Consortium. As an independent and voluntary campaign, they have worked tirelessly to make this campaign a very successful campaign. I also would like to thank our celebrity ambassadors who have pledged to support action to impact in accelerating the progress of localizing sustainable development goals in Sri Lanka. They have taken their steps to take the message to millions of their fans. I believe that their action is going to truly inspire, educate, and accelerate their fans to take actions in their own communities. We were also supported by key title partners to make Action to Impact Week a very successful way. So I would like to thank Arimac Digital, being the virtual event management partner, PR Wire, being the strategic public relation partner, as our knowledge partner, Sustainable Development Council, and Global Strategic Corporate Sustainability Private Limited, as our technology partners, Impact Studios and Applied Bright Solutions, as our creative partners, CFA Private Limited and Grease Pencil Private Limited, our SEO content consultant, Pixel Clear, strategic resource partner, the Sri Lankan Scientist Magazine. I also would like to thank our advocacy and the collaborative youth partners. And with that note, I would like to again invite all of you to be a part of Action to Impact. Tell us what are the challenges and the issues that all of you are facing in your community. And tell us the innovations and the ideas that you are driving in your community to transform these challenges into a sustainable space for you all to have a sustainable community. Our team, our dedicated volunteers are here to support us. So at the end of the Action to Impact launch, we are taking the beginning of the 9-year-long campaign to make Sri Lanka an inclusive and sustainable country. Please be a part of the journey, Action to Impact. Thank you.
Decent work and economic growth is the 8th goal of the SDGs declared by the United Nations. I choose to stand for this because I believe that everybody deserves a favorable working condition in order to contribute to the economic development of the country. As someone who has had a corporate work experience previously, I see how and where working conditions could be improved, and support could be given for job creation and enterprises in both corporates and also in the entertainment industry. I wish to contribute with what I have learned and experienced towards upholding Goal 8 while exploring what more should be done. Something particularly that I'm passionate about is eradicating child labor, which is one of the main reasons that I chose Goal 8. I have pledged with the International Labour Organization to be the musical artist for the cause of eradicating child labor, and thereby created a song called Punchiyat Tatu, which creates awareness and talks about this subject. So I hope to continue the work, helping raise awareness of the other aspects of Goal 8 as well.
Road to Right සංවිධානය විසින් සංවිධානය කර Action to Impact ජාතික වැඩසටහනට මට අද සහභාගී වීමට ආරාධනාව ලැබුණා. මට ඉතාමත් සතුටුයි ඔබ සියලු දෙනාම අද දවසේ මුණ ගැසීමට හැකියවීම ගැන. කර්මාන්ත නවෝත්පාදනය සහ යටිතල පහසුකම් යන ප්‍රධාන කරුණු තුන නව්‍යකරණය සහ යටිතල පහසුකම් යන සංකල්පය මා විසින් අද සහ හෙටත් නියෝජනය කරනවා. අප රටේ නොයෙකුත් කර්මාන්තයන් තිබෙනවා. අපි බැලුවොත් රටේ ජනගහනයෙන් කීයෙන් කී දෙනාද මේ කර්මාන්තවලට තමාගේ දායකත්වය ලබා දෙන්නේ. මේ රටේ ව්‍යවසායකයන් සහ ව්‍යවසායකත්වය තවත් පුළුල් කිරීමට මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. මේ රටේ අනාගතය වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී සිටින අපේ දූ දරුවන් සහ තරුණ තරුණියන් සහ අප සියලු දෙනාම වෙනුවෙන් මම මාගේ උපරිම දායකත්වය ලබා දෙනවා. අප රට ඉදිරියට යෑමට නම්‍යකරණය සහ යටිතල පහසුකම් ඉතාමත් වැදගත්. අප සියලු දෙනාම යම් කර්මාන්තයක නියැලී සිටිනවා. කොතරම් බාධක අපි සියලු දෙනාට තිබුණත් අපි සියලු දෙනාම එක්ක රාශි වී එකාසේ අපේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව නව්‍යකරණයෙන් සවිමත් වූ දේශයක් බවට ගොඩනංවමු. එන්න අප සමග එක්වන්න. අයිබෝන්.
Hi, I'm Arita Vikramasinghe, and I'm the ambassador for Goal 10, Reduced Inequalities. I support a world that is just, free, and equal for everyone. A world that is unequal is also a world that is unjust. I believe that everyone has the right for equal opportunity and the right to pursue their happiness. Everyone has the right to be themselves and the right to be treated fairly and justly and equally as anyone else. We all want the same things. We want a life that is happy. We want a life that is free. We want a life that rewards us for what we bring to the table, and a life that doesn't judge us for the differences that we're born with. It's important that all of us come together and work towards achieving these sustainable development goals. Whatever your passion may be, a world that is able to achieve these goals together is a world that will be better for all of us. So please, come join with me. Show me your passion, and let's work together for a more sustainable, better, equal, and just world.
Hi everyone, I'm Hirishi, and I am super excited to be here at the Business Forum to launch the national campaign Action to Impact, powered by the Road to Rights, to successfully achieve and strengthen the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals introduced by the United Nations. And I think the personal reason why I was really excited to be a part of this is because I think we are representing a generation that is very, very decisive, and we are at a decisive point, a crossroad, where we are also dealing with the consequences of previous generations and their actions. We're dealing with those consequences. But at the same time, we are kind of receptive to the idea that the decisions we make as a whole can take us into either extreme. So we are in a pivotal moment. So I think our generation has a very big responsibility in having insight to their actions. And I believe that although some issues we don't personally undergo, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And either way, it will affect all of us directly or indirectly. Because even if you take the Sustainable Development Goals, although we have compartmentalized it to achieve it in a metric system, they're still very well integrated. So there are so many macro and micro factors that are impacting each and every domain. So whether it be the environment, ecosystem, empowering children, protecting them, vouching for healthcare, no matter what avenue it is, they're all interconnected. So it is important for us to take a holistic responsibility in creating individual discipline and creating a value system that can help Sri Lanka move forward. And my goal is goal number 11, that is to support sustainable cities and communities. I'm a city girl. I grew up in Colombo, and I have seen the transition, a beautiful yet a very intimidating transition. And I think there's a lot of responsibility and individual discipline, like I said, be it from dividing the garbage at home to maintaining a green environment, to little things that can have a domino effect on a social scale. So being a media personality, I hope I can leverage media, all media channels, entities, and platforms to really voice this, because media plays a tremendous role in shaping society. And we are currently facing the challenge of pushing adequate knowledge, because globally media is socioeconomically and politically challenged and polarized. So as a media personality, I'm hoping to create awareness through media channels and platforms, and turn that awareness into action that can eventually manifest as impact. Thank you.
තිරසාර සංවර්ධන ඉලක්ක විවිධ අංශවලින් 16ක් තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ ඉලක්ක 16ම එකට එකතු කරන ප්‍රධාන ඉලක්කය තමයි partnership for the goals. 2030 අවුරුද්ද වෙන විට අපේ ලොව වගේම අපේ රටත් තිරසාර සංවර්ධන ඉලක්ක හරහා සංවර්ධන වෙච්ච රටක් කරන්නයි අපි මේ සූදානම් වන්නේ. අපේ රටේ පුරවැසියන්ට ලැබිය යුතු ප්‍රධාන අයිතිය ලබා ගන්න තිබෙන හැම අංශයෙන්ම ලබා ගන්න තිබෙන සේවාව නිසි ලෙස ලබා දීමෙන් එයාලගේ ජීවිතය සංවර්ධන කරහා ගැනීමටයි අපි මේ සූදානම් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් Road to Rights, Action to Impact හරහා මම සපෝට් කරන්නේ Partnership for the Goals. ඉතින් මම ඔබට ආරාධනා කරනවා අපිත් සමග එක්වතු වෙන්න. ඔබත් අපිත් එකතු වෙලා අපේ රටත් ලොවත් STS හරහා දියුණු කරමු.